Hi, it's Dianna Deeney. This is an interview episode with a special guest, Shere Tuckey. I met Shere at an IEEE Women in Engineering conference where we were both presenting. Her presentation was titled How to Be Persuasive Rather Than Abrasive, which I learned was a good entry point to something that was much bigger called Crucial Conversations. Crucial Conversations was first a book, a New York Times best-selling book that was published in 2012 by Carrie Patterson. It has since developed into a following and online training source and training center with certifications. You can actually become certified to be a Crucial Conversations trainer. Shere found Crucial Conversations during a time of need, and she's since become one of those trainers, and she champions these methods in her own work in engineering and with others in her workplace. We talk about her successes and other successes from those she has trained. You'll hear how the Crucial Conversations tools can be used for talking with someone about something crucial. It's also a good way to just approach conversations in general. After you listen, visit the blog for this interview at qualityduringdesign.com. There's links to the Crucial Conversations website and Shere's recommended YouTube videos to get started. This interview is part of our series, A Chat with Cross-Functional Experts. Our focus is speaking with people that are typically part of a cross-functional team for new product development. We discuss their viewpoints and perspectives regarding new products, the values they bring to new product development, and how they're involved and work with product design engineering teammates. Listen in, and we hope you enjoy this episode of the Quality During Design podcast. Hello, and welcome to Quality During Design, the place to use quality thinking to create products others love for less. Each week, we talk about ways to use quality during design engineering and product development. My name is Dianna Deeney. I'm a senior-level quality professional and engineer with over 20 years of experience in manufacturing and design. Listen in and then join us. Visit qualityduringdesign.com. I want to welcome Shere Tuckey to the show today about crucial conversations in an engineering environment, how to prepare for and have difficult conversations with peers, managers, and others. Let me tell you more about Shere and her background. Shere is a branch chief in the Air Force Research Laboratory, Munitions Directorate, Eglin Air Force Base in Florida. She is responsible for advocating, planning, budgeting, organizing, and directing the execution of high-priority technology development portfolio, as well as direct supervision and management of all personnel within the branch. Over the last 29 years, she has managed 12 different teams across many engineering disciplines, from shock physics experimentation to weapon effects modeling and simulation. Shere has taken a special interest in leadership, mentoring, and helping teams communicate effectively. After being asked to serve as the Dean of Leadership for her organization's Workforce Development Program, she became certified to teach the Crucial Conversations course as a foundational element of leadership development. She has taught 5 highly rated classes to high-level managers, junior employees, and everyone in between. The positive feedback received from these classes and the course's universal applicability has motivated Shere to share this knowledge in as many forums as possible, which is why she agreed to talk with us here on the Quality During Design podcast. Hi, Shere. It's nice to talk with you again.
Hello, Dianna. Glad to be here. Thanks.
Now, you're the person who introduced me to Crucial Conversations. And I found out a little bit later after you were talking about that you've also led and managed many teams in technology and engineering. And I sometimes like to think that engineering projects are their own beast. And there are aspects of it that are different. But the thing that's the same is being able to work on a team with others. Have you found that to be true?
Yes, absolutely. I have led and worked with and struggled with many teams over the years. And that is one of the common things I see across them is the struggle just to see eye to eye sometimes and agree on that common path forward. And sometimes personalities will get in the way. Different people have different backgrounds. Some people have stronger ways to express their opinions and things like that. So yeah, it doesn't matter. I've been in a variety of groups from process improvement to shock physics engineering laboratory establishments, and that really is a common theme.
Yeah, and it can be difficult working with a large team of people. And then, like you said, just different personalities. And then, especially if you're working on a team with different engineering disciplines, or even if it's
Right.
a team of engineers and then also marketing or field operations people, they're all coming from a different point of view and approaching the same problem from a different space. So even just coming into a conversation coming from that different space can also create some challenges in productive teamwork, do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I work in the Air Force Research Laboratory, which is a government agency, even though it is a research laboratory. And so we have a lot of different teams, like you mentioned, financial, we have contracting teams, and they actually all have their own languages and terminology. And we even find it humorous sometimes that we'll have acronyms that just if you switch teams within the same organization, they mean something different. So yeah, it can definitely be a challenge just in making sure everyone understands what everyone even means when they're talking.
Yeah, acronyms are one of my pet peeves. I'll admit it. And
Yes,
I work in
I agree.
I work in quality and reliability. We have our own acronyms. I guess every group does. So that is something that's important to be sensitive to.
Yes.
Now, the other things about working with cross-functional teams and having difficulty is, I've seen and I've experienced sometimes when we have those difficulties, we start to avoid having the conversations that maybe we should have because we're avoiding the conflicts. So maybe we wouldn't call the meeting with marketing because we feel like it's too hard to have that conversation, for example. But then we're missing out on a lot of important design inputs or project inputs. And it is important to be able to work with our teammates.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the big issues, right? Are all those great ideas left unsaid or even feedback that people really need to move forward in a positive direction and efficiently and effectively, because I think all of these avoided conversations or fear of conversations can really slow us down and end up making us go back for rework multiple times if we're not careful.
Yeah, and that can be expensive for time and then just budgets too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, especially, in our case, sometimes we'll have big test events that use hardware and things that are very expensive to make. So you want to get those right the first time and not have to redo it because a couple of people didn't want to have a conversation.
When I learned about crucial conversations from you, you had some stories about when you were a facilitator for these teams. Can you share a little bit about your stories about how you did that with your teams, what role you took into having your team do these crucial conversations?
Sure. I find that probably my personality is one of wanting for everyone to get along, right? I want people to be successful and work together. And when you have teams of people with strong personalities or we're not making a lot of progress, I would tend to shift into that facilitator role that you mentioned. Now that I've learned these skills, sometimes people actually call me in to be a facilitator. But back then, I just kind of shifted into that role because I really cared about the results and what we were trying to accomplish. One example would be when we were trying to set up a new laboratory to test some specific things that I'm not going to go into the details of that, but the area of concern was managed by a technician who had established different kinds of testing throughout his entire career. And so this was brand new to him. He had this great, really motivated PhD who great ideas and everyone was on board. But we had to work to get the money. We also had to work to get new materials and equipment. And then also get that technician on board to join us in solving the problems that we had to get this laboratory set up. And sometimes they would rub each other the wrong way. And we would just leave where I would say the technician might become more passive aggressive and just not answer the email or not turn in the order for the materials that we needed, things of that nature, there was some undermining happening that wasn't clear until you dug into it and you're like, why isn't anything going on? And so I came in and fumbled through a few conversations trying to get to the bottom of it, just thinking if I could just compel this person to do their job, right? Then maybe they'd just listen and because they would get it. But that isn't always the case. Just because it's their job and someone told them to do it doesn't mean that they feel that same passion to do it or buy-in. And so they can create some inefficiencies because they're going to go work on something they really want to do, not this new project. So anywho, I had a mentor who recommended the book Crucial Conversations to me. And that's where I started really digging into that to see if I could help with this situation. And so I was able to prepare and get together some information. And the big one in this case was establishing a mutual purpose and really understanding their perspective, what challenges they were facing, why they were resistant to this new approach. And in the end, when I was able to get us together and truly be curious about that individual's perspective, instead of just seeing them as a roadblock, they had some phenomenal inputs and ideas that actually made it better in the end. And I think that was sort of my aha moment where I was like, oh, if we can use some of these skills and I can help others learn some of these skills, we can really learn from each other, when before we just saw each other as sort of roadblocks or, personalities or, whatever label we might want to put on somebody. That if we can approach people with that curiosity and interest, we can get further faster.
So when you read into the Crucial Conversations, this is something that a lot of teams adopt, not just engineering and technical, because we're talking, teams are teams and people are people. But you've had a lot of success with it in your career. Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
So what's the concept actually? Is it a framework? Is it a model? Is it a mindset? How would you describe what Crucial Conversations really is from a high level?
Right. So I would call it's a collection of skills that they have put together in a nice model, mostly so that it's easier to remember it. And they bend the different skills into 3 distinct areas, which is working on me first, which is what you would do before you have a conversation, and then what you're going to do during that conversation, and then how to wrap up that conversation effectively in a way that ensures that you didn't just waste your time having that conversation. And so then within those skill sets, they have very, very practical, specific items that you can do, and in some cases, certain orders of events, so that you can express your opinion and encourage others to do so in a way that makes everyone feel safer and also continues the dialogue. And so that's one of the things that they really focus on within this model is staying in dialogue, which is where both parties are being heard and are able to share their information freely. I think a lot of us have had these experiences, very positive experiences with people where we share ideas and we come to a great path forward and we're working together in a very positive way. And I think sometimes we think, well, that's only possible with certain individuals that are more like me or think the way I think or have the same values that I have. And I think what was eye-opening about this model and what has been fed back to me after I started teaching this to my organization is that it enables us to have those kinds of really enjoyable and synergistic exchanges with pretty much anyone. And so that's one of the pieces that I enjoy a lot about it. But again, it's really a step-by-step process, how to prepare, how to share your information, what to look for during the conversation to make sure you're still in dialogue, and then how to wrap that conversation up. That's the real high level.
Now, you mentioned that you were a facilitator and you jumped into it with a project and gave it a try. And I also heard you say that you were training your organization on it too. It sounds like this is a method that you can use on your own. Is it more successful when everyone on the team has learned these principles, or it's just as successful and it's just a matter of spreading the word of how to have a good conversation?
That's a great question. You can be successful, and I felt like I have been successful kind of being the only person in the room with the skills, but you have to be kind of willing to be the person that extends the olive leaf, if you would say that, or you extend the credit and have to sort of accommodate when others don't have the skills. So I would say it's a little bit harder to engage in those conversations effectively when others aren't aware of their own behaviors like you might be. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what you learn is that self-reflection on what am I doing? What do I really want? How am I approaching this conversation in a way that makes them feel safe? They might not be worried about you feeling safe. And so that can make it a little more complicated to be successful, which is actually what motivated me to become a certified trainer and share these skills. You know, I joke with the classes sometimes when I do my intro. I was like, well, really, I did it. Obviously, I want to help people be successful, but also there's a little selfish element in that, right? Is if we can all learn these skills, right, then my job's a little easier when I have these facilitation sessions or even just in my day-to-day work with my teams. So a little selfish there because I do think they're so good, and that if we could just all extend that credit to each other and help each other have that dialogue, we'll be more successful as a group.
And I guess that's one of the principles of this. It's a conversation, right? You're not approaching somebody expecting them to have a problem and then you have to force them to get through the problem. You're having a conversation and a dialogue. And I can see how two people or more approaching the same conversation from the same frame of mind, which was already built up to be helpful, would be helpful for the overall process. I could see that. So are there some meetings where you kind of just sit back and watch the magic happen after you've done the training?
Yeah, you know, I haven't, we've, in my organization, we have many hundreds of people and I've trained about 50. So we're just getting warmed up. But what I do really enjoy is when someone comes back to me and they share when they got the courage and prepared and had a very difficult conversation using the skills, and it was successful for them. So, for example, just yesterday, I ran into one of our administrative professionals who shared, she was able to come to the class, and recently she had gotten very poor feedback that she didn't feel was justified. And so, of course, her first reaction is anger and defensiveness. And then she remembered, oh, I took this class. I have these skills. And so she prepared. And she said she took herself a week to kind of work through it so that she could have a calm conversation with her supervisor, share her facts, explain why this didn't work for her, and really ask her supervisor for examples of what she had done to warrant this score and that score, and really walked through it, very detailed using the skills. And at the time, supervisor wasn't super receptive to it, but after thinking through what she had said and then she had a third party there who was like, how did you prepare for that class, like that conversation? It was really well done. Who then helped facilitate some understanding with the supervisor who hasn't had the training. And in the end, she was able to get her feedback updated and a bonus of the deal.
Oh, so, wow.
I was like, wow, okay. And she, she was just super excited about that. So I, of course, was excited about it as well. I was like, oh, how wonderful. Every person at every level in the organization can use the skills in different types of situations. And I even had a lady share with me that she was able to mend a fractured relationship with her mother they hadn't really been speaking for over 10 years with these skills. And I was just floored when she shared that with me. So I think that that's another aspect of this, right? It can help your personal relationships as well as your work relationships.
Well, those two examples seem like they are really crucial conversations.
Yeah, those
two.
were serious.
Yeah.
There's a more kind of work-related example that might be, more relatable to everyone, which is we had, actually, it was our division chief team. Like we have in our organization, we have sections, branches, divisions, and then that division chief leads, they will get together and make decisions about things. And I guess there was a point of contention and they could not agree, but 2 or 3 of them had taken my class and they're like, Shere, would you come and facilitate a conversation with all of us? Because we know we can do better. Mm-hmm. And so they asked me to come in and I just kind of walk them through the skills because it is important to realize these aren't something you're just going to read about and they're just going to be super easy. You have to work at it and you have to try and know when it's not going well so that then you maybe go read about it again, review the section of the book that applies to that, and then try again. And that's something I always like to remind people. Even if you have one conversation that doesn't go well, you can always circle back and, use some skills to improve the next time. It's not a one and done thing with conversations, although sometimes we feel that way because it didn't go well. So you just want to avoid it from there on out, but we can get our skills in line and our confidence up and try again.
That's really great advice because, yeah, you do feel that way, especially if it is a really crucial conversation that it's a once and done. But in most cases, it's just not that way. You can try again.
Absolutely.
So, Shere, this sounds pretty awesome and like something that a lot of people might want to try, including myself. Is there one principle or one step that could help us get started with these crucial conversations?
Sure. If I only get a small amount of time to talk about crucial conversations, I've done like lunch and learns and things of that nature. I'll typically give a talk about how to be persuasive rather than abrasive. And this is one, I think that's how we met.
Yes,
I had
yes,
shared
it
this
is.
at the conference. And so I like this one because it really helps you understand a key piece, which is that you can argue as strongly as you want for your opinion, as long as you are equally vigorous in encouraging others to disagree with you. And so this is very powerful. This is something, it's a quote from the book that I think really it gives confidence, right? When you know this is true, you can dive into more conversations. So let me talk a little bit more about how to do that, right? And that's one of the things they have. There's sort of these sweeping statements, and then they give you the very specific things you can do. And so the key in this section, how you remember it, is facts, story, ask. And so that's the order in which you will have a conversation in a way that removes that defensiveness in the other person. So before you open your mouth, there's work you have to do. I mentioned that's part of the model, right? Mm-hmm. And you've got to you have to think through what your ideas are. And especially if you're going to give someone some feedback of that nature, make sure that you are talking about facts. Remember, the first part is facts. You have to really understand what facts are. A lot of times we will feel something or conclude something and we call those facts, but those aren't really the facts. So we have to take some time to do what the book calls mastering my stories, to make sure I don't share stories. And so I can give you a small example about that. So I might say, George is lazy, or I might go up to George and say, thinking my facts are George is lazy. And I go to George, you're lazy, right? He's going to get defensive immediately. But if you go, hey, George, 3 times in the past month, I've noticed you were working on your laptop and not in the lab like we had agreed you would, working on X, Y, or Z. So then you say, and then last week this was due, but you missed that deadline. So these are all things that George would not be able to refute because they're things you can observe, you can see them, you can hear them, and therefore it's a fact. And so the story you told yourself was that George was lazy. We don't know for sure that George is lazy. Mm-hmm. We know that these other things happened. So you can share your facts, I've noticed this, I've seen these things, I've heard these things, and then share, well, I'm starting to think that, and lazy's probably still a bit strong in this situation, or you know, in any situation that's a little bit extreme, but you could say, I'm starting to think that you're not invested in this project, or maybe you don't understand the motivation behind the project, and I'm happy to share that with you, or, you know, something along those lines. And then the ask part is you saying, well, what am I missing? Is there anything from your perspective that I need to understand? So that's the idea, that you share your facts, and then what you concluded from those facts, which is your story, and then you ask them for their information. And that asking part is super important, because you need to be genuinely interested in their perspective. Because if you go into that conversation with your facts and you know your story is the only story there is, then your attitude and your mannerisms and your body language are going to convey that you're really not that interested in their opinion. Whether you've said it or not, everything about you conveys that. We can't hide what we're thinking inside our heads sometimes. So we have to be aware to change our mindsets, change our hearts about this person, and be genuinely interested in what they have to say. And then in that ask phase, they will share back with you because they feel safe that you are genuinely interested and that you want to understand their perspective. So that's a quick little rundown of one of the lessons that we teach probably in at least an hour and a half. So a little bit more to it, but that's just a quick rundown.
And then also in that ask phase, I've heard other people describe something similar as you're open to learning about the other person's answer. It's like a teaching, learning kind of conversation that you're having, so that you're approaching with, hey, this is what I know. Like you said, you share your facts and your story, and then asking them is sort of like you want to learn from them what they have to bring to the conversation.
Absolutely. And kind of when you think about from a collaboration perspective versus maybe giving someone feedback, you might just say, this is what I've researched. This is what I've learned and concluded. What can you add to that? Do you have more information to add to this, right? Is that it's really an invitation to collaborate, an invitation that you believe they have value to offer, that they have information you don't have, and that maybe you don't know everything. And you need them to better understand the situation and come up with the best ideas possible.
And that's a great approach too for crucial conversations, then also in general meetings about products.
Yes,
where we talked at the beginning of the episode, and people from different perspectives. You know, I've been in meetings. Engineers are presenting their technical reports, and there's the next step that could be taken, which is asking other people for their perspective and being open to what they have to say about it.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And I think that's, you know, at the end of the day, I almost wish they didn't title the book Crucial Conversations. I understand why, because the skills really do apply in those really difficult types of conversations. But the skill, I think I use them all day long in every interaction that I might have. And I've seen people do this really well when they're presenting a new idea. So one thing that's going on in our world is we want to do a digital transformation, right? We want everything to shift to, you know, from paper or, you know, general products into this digital realm, and doing model-based system engineering and things of that nature. And so we have a few people who have gone out and are digging into what this really is and how does it apply to our workspace and things of that nature. And this one person who's really mastered these skills well, he presents his information. He's like, well, I haven't learned everything, and this is how I think it applies to us. Like, what do you guys think? Like, this isn't written in stone. Like, he's just constantly, it's not that he's not confident about what he's sharing, but he's encouraging everyone to challenge him. He's encouraging everyone to add to what he's presenting. And I think that's so critical when you're trying to move forward with new ideas and designing, or, you know, really anything. Like we've mentioned, this applies to so many aspects.
And this is someone that Well, he's one of your students of the crucial
Yes.
conversations.
Yes. And some people, and that's one thing you learn when you're in the class, right? Some of the skills come easy to you because you've maybe learned them through hard knocks, or, it's just natural for you to fall back on those. And then other ones you need to really work on. And I think that might be one of those. In this case, he really resonated with that. And because probably he's experienced it in a positive way before. When people treat him that way, he enjoyed that collaboration. And so that's one of the things we have to realize is, how we want to be treated, right? That's sort of the golden rule applies here, is when someone's sharing their ideas with me, I'd like to be invited to offer my inputs and ideas. So let's do that for others as well.
Oh, I can see how that's like a self-fulfilling, I don't know, training session that you're giving in your place of work where, people
Right.
are like, hey, I really like that. That went really well. I think I want to do that too.
Yes. And one other aspect that I think, because a lot of times people will go into these conversations before the training with the mindset of, I just want to push my ideas and talk over everyone, and so that nobody else can get their ideas in, and therefore I will win and my ideas will be the best, the received ones. Whereas when you push so hard for your ideas, everyone pushes back. But this curious alternate phenomena happens, which is when you present an idea and encourage challenging of it, you become more influential in the end, which is sort of the aspect of how to be persuasive and not abrasive, right? So the less you push your own ideas, the more influence you actually have. So it's a really interesting principle that's foundational to all the work.
That is interesting. Yeah, and I like how you call it work, because it is something that you have to learn, and then you have to just remember, and it's really something you need to be proactive and actively doing, right? It might get easier the more practice that you have, but it's still, you have to be mindful of it when you're having these conversations.
Oh, very much.
Does it get to be like a muscle?
It does. But I do find that for me, the longer I'm away from the material, you'll start to slide back into your old habits or your default behaviors. And I do find that even certain things will trigger us, right? Like to be defensive in a conversation. And that's the hardest part. Is I can generally do well when I'm dealing with someone who responds to the skills, right? But occasionally you come across someone who just and you feel disrespected, right? Maybe they've dismissed my idea, or maybe, and it's human just to have that sort of reaction where your blood pressure pops up and you're like, and so I've had, even probably as recent as like a year or two ago, where I'm just butting heads with somebody and I'm like, why is this happening? I should be better at this. Right. And so it just dawned on me, I'm like, man, I need to go review. And that's one thing that's nice in the class. They give you a summary. And if you're challenged in this way, this is probably the skill you need to go back and review. And so I did go back and do that. And I had fallen into what they call a clever story. And the clever stories center around victim, villain, or helpless stories. And so in this case, I had made this individual a villain, where they were just a roadblock and causing trouble. And so there's little ways that you can, if you feel like, oh, I have no responsibility in this issue and it's not my fault and there's nothing I can do, that's also a clue that, you've told yourself a clever story and you need to walk yourself back out of that generally speaking, we play a role in every one of the issues that we're concerned about, and the other person's not the villain we like to think they are.
So sometimes going back to the source material and just giving it another review is a good way to keep the crucial conversations going at the workplace and everywhere else. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. And I will, and along those lines, I have started sending out little occasional newsletters and reminders to all the folks that have taken the class, like, hey, don't forget.
Well, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
So the way people can learn about crucial conversations is you've mentioned the book, but you've also mentioned classes too.
Right.
Are the classes just for people that want to get to be a certified trainer, or are there other kind of classes that people can take if they want to learn more about this?
Yeah, there are tons of classes, different types. And so I've shared with you, which I think you can share with others, or just some YouTube videos. These are short, skill-based YouTube videos. And also their website, cruciallearning.com. They have a variety of classes, this company, Crucial Learning, and Crucial Conversations for Dialogue is the one we've been talking about today. Anybody can go on the Crucial Learning site and get more information about the class, the skills that they'll teach, and then some of the different options available for that.
Yeah, well, that's great. And yes, I will share those links on the podcast blog. Now, just, wrapping up today, what's one thing that we can do today to improve the work with our team? I mean, maybe the next step would be look more into crucial conversations, but, just say we're pulling into the workplace and we're turning off the podcast and heading in. What is one thing we could do in our day when talking with other people to make things better?
I would have to say that most impactful skill that you can adopt at any point without reading any book is to assume good intent in the other person, even if you don't quite see it. That if you can believe that they are reasonable, rational, decent human being and approach them with that mindset, then that will automatically remove the defensiveness that might be present in yourself or any other people you might interact with. So just assume that good intent in the other person and be curious enough to learn more about their perspective. And that changes everything.
Oh, that's great advice, Shere. Can people contact you if they have questions or if they want to learn more about crucial conversations or how you're using it in the workplace?
Sure. My email address is just shere.tuckey@gmail.com, which you're welcome to share that if you'd like. And I encourage anyone to, read or listen to the book. They have audio versions of it read by the author, Joseph Grenny. But I am happy to respond to email questions if anyone has any.
That's generous of you. Thanks.
No problem.
Well, I appreciate you coming on to talk about crucial conversations with me, Shere. I had learned a lot the first time I met you and continue to learn a lot from you. And I appreciate you sharing what you have to know because it'll help make our workplaces better.
Thank you. And I appreciate this opportunity to share it because as you've probably realized, I'm a bit passionate about it. I just wish I could share it with more people time and time again. I'll keep sharing as much as people will let me.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you like this topic or the content in this episode, there's much more on our website, including information about how to join our signature coaching program, the Quality During Design Journey. Consistency is important, so subscribe to the weekly newsletter. This has been a production of Deeney Enterprises. Thanks for listening.